I'll hit it real quick here.
Usually over there.
I'll hit it. All set now.
Thank you, James. Should be good, Dominic.
Very good, Eric. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 8th, 2021. And if everybody could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
under
with
God,
liberty and
visible,
justice.
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good. We're going to go to the roll call is next. Noreen, if you could do the roll call, please, I'd appreciate it.
Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
Here.
Commissioner Fox,
Here.
Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman,
Here,
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Haggerty.
Here.
All set.
Okay, thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
All right, next thing is on the agenda. I don't believe there's any changes, but I'll check with the town planner if we're all set on the approval of the agenda.
There are no changes to the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next thing would be on the agenda is our public participation. If there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak, please raise your hand.
Hi.
Public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Within Zoom application, raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling it the Zoom meeting by telephone, star 9 to raise your hand to be recognized, or use star 6 when recognized to speak by telephone. State your name and address for the record.
None of the attendees have their hand raised, Dominic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda would be our zoning enforcement officer's report. Eric.
Yep, you've all seen the report. Are there any questions? I believe most of the banners, the waiver banners got taken care of in the last month or so along the Turnpike and Fenn Road where they were located.
Very good. Is there any questions from the commissioners concerning our zoning enforcement officer's report?
No.
Any commissioners have any questions? Okay.
I believe Stanley raised his hand.
Commissioner Sobieski, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric, 260 Sam Road, is that still the same issue with the car issue?
That is an ongoing issue. The town attorney emailed me probably about a month ago and said he was getting ready to file paperwork at the court level. I did not hear back whether that was done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else with their hand raised? I can't see that function for some reason. Does anybody else have a hand up?
No one else does right now, Dominic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any commissioners have any remarks? All right, we're gonna go into our public hearing section. And if I could
Chairman
have
Payne,
our,
I have a question or a comment.
yes, Commissioner Sobieski.
I got a call from several residents about Gibbs Oil. I don't know, somebody's been putting a flyer out there. I don't know where it came from or what's going on, but I explained that this has already been passed, and at the last that I knew, we were just looking at the site plan. I don't know who put the flyer out, but one guy was very belligerent when he called. The other guy was very, very nice, and we talked for, I don't know, 45 minutes. There seems to be an awful lot of misinformation out there all of a sudden on, I don't know if it's coming from Facebook or whatever, but I think that we need to find a way to curtail this misinformation. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Any other commissioners have any remarks? Hearing no remarks, could I have the Vice Chairman Claffey read the procedures for the public hearing if he hasn't?
Procedures for public hearing. The order of proceedings at public hearing shall be as follows: convening by chairman. B, reading of notice by commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. Next slide. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Very, very good. Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Claffey. I appreciate that. Our first public hearing for tonight is petition 37-21. If I could have Commissioner Lenars read that first petition, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Petition 37-21, special permit section 3.19A and associated site plan to construct a residential apartment development with a parking garage in a TOD PD zone at 690 Cedar Street. Applicant and contact Anthony Properties. Brian Shu, owner, Town of Newington.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Lenars. I will ask the applicant to start his presentation.
Okay, just make sure you can hear me okay, right?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ronald Bommingen. I'm a professional engineer with Fussin O'Neill in Manchester, Connecticut. Here with me tonight is Brian Shu from Anthony Properties, as well as Robert Lampkin from HLR Architects, and Mark Vertucci, also with Fussin O'Neill. On behalf of Anthony Properties, I'm here tonight requesting a special permit and site plan approval for the proposed multi-use family residential redevelopment project located at 690 Cedar Street in the planned development zone, which also includes the transit-oriented overlay zone. In addition to the special permit and site plan approval, we are requesting TOD incentives per section 3.19A.4 of your zoning regulations. This section of the regulations reads development proposals that contain any of the specific objectives and uses described in section 3.19A.2.c may be eligible for incentives that include reduced mandatory landscaping, reduced mandatory on-site parking, reduced front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks. For this particular project, we will be requesting incentives for reduced mandatory on-site parking, as well as reduced yard setbacks. I'll go into a little bit more detail with specifics of the project in a second, but right now I'd like to introduce Brian Shu of Anthony Properties, who would like to just say a few words.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can,
Okay.
Brian. Hi.
All right, great. Thank you, Ron. And I'd also like to thank the commission for giving me a chance to visit with you about this project. I think it's probably appropriate, since we haven't got to meet in person, to give you a little bit of background on Anthony Properties and how we ended up here in Newington, Connecticut. Our company's been around for probably around 37, 38 years now, and I am the director of development for the company. And I've been with Anthony Properties for, I think, 23 years now. The longer history of the company was developing commercial and retail properties all across the country. We got into the multifamily space about 8 years ago, and we only build Class A multifamily communities. We are a build and hold developer. We like owning things. We don't sell properties very often, and all of our multifamily projects have been very successful to date. So as the director of development, it's my responsibility basically to do everything from finding where the next project is going to be, to getting a piece of property under contract, getting all the entitlements, et cetera, and all the way to groundbreaking. And once the project breaks ground, I tend to take a more 20,000-foot view of things. Our previous multifamily projects were more in the Midwest, and I have always felt like that there were a lot of opportunities in the Northeast, excuse me, especially if you looked hard enough for them. And we're the type of company that goes anywhere in the country, regardless of where it is. As long as the opportunity's there, we can pretty much go anywhere. We were able to find a project over in the greater Boston area, kind of in between Providence and Boston. And we started working on that one a couple of years ago. And if you're going to have a project in one part of the country, you might as well have more than one. So I started looking for second and even third projects. We're always looking, but and then the pandemic struck. And so literally for the weeks during the travel ban, I was sitting on my computer at home, just looking at Google Earth, finding vacant pieces of property. And then if something looked good, I would dig further into it. So as soon as the travel ban was lifted, I got on the phone and found out that this piece of property was owned by the town. I think I spoke with Steve Kosofsky first, and I jumped on the first plane I could to come out here, and met with Keith Chapman and Steve that first time. And we've been working on this project ever since, and I think that's been about 15 months or so now. Looking forward, we're very excited about this project. We feel that there is a need for new Class A multifamily product in this market. This site certainly has all the characteristics that I look for. Great location. Location actually is an amenity these days. And so if you're located at a great intersection or along a highway or next to a transit station, those are all positive attributes. Great other amenities nearby with the shopping center right next to it. You can walk and go get your groceries and walk back home very easily. And then the fact that this is a TOD project is really a bonus for us. It's something that we've wanted to get into, and so finding a site with all the attributes I just mentioned, plus it being a TOD project, is a real plus. So again, thank you for letting us visit with you, and we look forward to breaking ground on this one as soon as possible.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Now I'd like to be able to share my screen if I can, and I can go through some slides here.
Okay.
Just let me know when it's ready.
I think Eric's working on that for you.
Okay.
Yep.
All set, Eric?
James is actually working on it on the other side. Hold on.
All right. While he's working on it, I'll continue, and then we can catch up with the slides as I'm able to share.
Okay, thank you,
So-
Ronald.
No problem. So the proposed residential development project is located on the vacant piece of property at 690 Cedar Street, adjacent to the Connecticut Fast Track Station. The property is comprised of about 3 3/4 acres of land located to the north of Cedar Street, west of the Fast Track bus line, and south of Myra Cohen. The adjacent property parcels along Myra Cohen located to the west and northwest are all currently zoned
Ron,
PD
I'm
as
sorry
well.
to interrupt. You should be able to screen share now.
All right, thank you. Okay. You should be able to see an aerial of the site now. So you got the site here is this pad site here just to the west of the Fast Track Station. Fast Track Station is to the northeast there. Cedar Street is to the south. Myra Cohen connects down to the Fast Track Station. So as I was saying, the property has been owned by the town of Newington since 2008 when it was acquired through a foreclosure process. Prior to town taking ownership, it was home of National Welding for many years. In 2014, the town of Newington received a brownfields grant from the state to assist in environmental remediation of the site, with a stipulation attached to the grant that the redevelopment must be used for a transit-oriented design use. Large amount of the site has already been remediated. However, part of the redevelopment project, the remaining portion of the site will be cleaned up in accordance with Connecticut DEEP and EPA guidelines. We are currently in the process of getting approvals for the remedial action plan from both agencies. The proposed redevelopment of the site is for a 4-story, 238 unit multifamily residential structure. The mixes of units are going to be 14 studio apartments, 151 bedroom apartments, 66 2-bedroom units, and 8 3-bedroom units. So a good mix there. The multifamily use will be supported by a 4-level parking garage structure containing 310 parking spaces. Here's a rendering of the site on your screen now. Access to the site will be via 2 curb cuts off of Myra Cohen Way. The first curb cut, as you come down Myra Cohen Way, will access the parking garage structure at the 2nd floor level, while the second entrance accesses visitor parking in the main lobby area at the main level, so 1 floor down from where you enter the parking garage. Site amenities for the project include 2 courtyards with a swimming pool, gathering spaces, fitness center, pedestrian access to the Connecticut Fast Track Station, as well as direct access to the multi-use trail adjacent to the project. So there's a direct access right to the multi-use trail. We have provided access via paver driveways, grass pavers, down both sides of the structure on the east and west side for emergency access. During the summertime, spring, summer, fall, it's going to appear to be grass. The 2 driveways are fully can be maintained throughout the year, plowed during the winter time, and kept clear. And they will be able to sustain the loads of the emergency vehicles if they need to drive down each side of the structure. During winter months, the snow storage will be provided along both sides of the emergency access ways, and then at the end of the access ways as well. And then as needed, the snow will be removed from the site to make room for the next storm event. Trash and recycling will be collected in trash rooms at each floor of the garage and wheeled out on days where the trash and recycling will get picked up. Site utilities are available either on site or in close proximity. So there is no need to bring in new mains or feeders to support this development. Everything is nearby. Stormwater management system has been designed to mimic existing conditions, and we have a no net increase in stormwater runoff as a result of the redevelopment project. There are 4 stormwater discharge points conveying stormwater off the property. Each location requires encroachment permit from the Connecticut DOT prior to construction. So basically, the state of Connecticut owns the drainage system to the north and east in both locations where we will be sending our stormwater. The Connecticut DOT had previously constructed a detention basin to the north of the Connecticut Fast Track, to the north of Myrocohen Way, for the purpose of the Connecticut Fast Track station. And they had some forward thinking back then when they designed it, to also size this detention basin to accommodate the future development of the property south of Myrocohen. So that includes the recently approved hotel site to the west of 690 Cedar Street, as well as our residential project. We're going to continue to work with Connecticut DOT to make sure we get those encroachment permits prior to construction. Water quality from the small amount of bituminous driveway provided on site will be treated through hydrodynamic separators and sized to handle the water quality flow as well as the peak flows leaving the system. The stormwater management system meets the town of Newington as well as Connecticut DEP guidelines in handling stormwater quantity and quality. Erosion and sediment control measures have been designed in accordance with the requirements of the town of Newington, as well as the 2002 Connecticut DEP erosion and sediment control guidelines. This includes installation of silt fence at fill slopes, drainage inlets, inlet protection at drainage inlets, and construction entrances to reduce the possibility of sediment leaving the site via construction vehicles. The owner and the contractor will be required to maintain erosion and sediment controls throughout the duration of the construction activities, and it's up to the owner to the owner will be required to also provide maintenance of the stormwater management system once the construction activities have been completed. That includes routine annual maintenance and cleaning of those separators. Site lighting for the driveways and exterior parking will be provided LED full cutoff light fixtures mounted on 14-foot light poles. There's an image of the light fixture itself. Those will be mounted on 14-foot light poles. And then around the building at each emergency egress will be wall-mounted lights shining down as you leave the building. With regards to landscaping, we'll have a mixture of deciduous and evergreen trees along, as well as lawn, provided along Myrocohen Way and proposed between Myrocohen Way and the proposed residential structure, providing some good screening between the two. A row of arborvitaes will be provided additional screening between the residential units and the future hotel site. So that is along the western part of the site here. The residential part of the building is the bottom half. Parking garage structure is on the northwest side of the property here. So we have this row of arborvitaes screening the hotel site from the residential or vice versa. Some additional red oaks will be planted along the southwest portion of the site to add vegetation adjacent to Cedar Street, these 3 trees here. Sidewalks will be constructed along Myrocohen, and direct access will be provided to the multi-use trail that runs parallel with the busway. So sidewalks along Myrocohen here, and then direct access to the multi-use trail. Redevelopment site is approximately 23 feet lower than the adjacent Cedar Street right-of-way. So Cedar Street on the bottom of the page here, that's about 23 feet higher than the actual first floor elevation of the residential structure. That means two floors, the first two floors will be basically out of sight from passerbys driving along Cedar Street. You're only going to see the top two floors of this residential structure when you're driving along Cedar Street. The previously approved four-story hotel site located to the west sits approximately 20 feet higher in elevation, resulting in a roof line that will slightly be higher than that of the proposed residential development, but consistent enough to relate to one another. So the hotel site, their pad site, is about 20 feet higher than the first floor elevation of the residential structure. So again, the hotel roof line is going to be higher, but it's going to be a good relation to each other so that they speak to each other. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Rob Lampkin of HLR Architects to go into the design and architectural features of the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks everyone else for letting us present this evening. My name is Justin Vaughn. I'm with HLR Architects for the proposed project. Bob's not able to make it, so I'm going to do the presentation today. So this is a rendering, a view of the building from across Myra-Cohen at the transit station. And so starting from the view on the left here, what we see is basically the front door to the project, where the entry to the leasing office and the resident amenity areas are at the ground level. So at this facade, which is oriented towards the transit station and the trail across the street, we've got large storefront windows at the ground floor entry, where you'll be able to get a good view through the building on access with the pool courtyard. Some other features of this facade is we've got a base of 3 stories of brick at the main entry. And then above that, we've got lap siding for a change in texture, some residential balconies, and then a cantilevered floating roof feature. One consistent design element of this project is we have a 1-level base of brick consistently around the perimeter of the building to address the pedestrian scale. And then the upper levels alternate between multi-stories of brick, like you see the dark brown brick here on the corners, and then the lap siding for a different texture. So almost 100% of the units on this project have either ground floor patios that address the trail, the street, or the adjacent property lines. And then the upper floor units have balconies as well, providing some great views to the west over the busway to the surrounding green areas. So moving to the right, once we get past the white brick area of the entry facade, we've got the brown brick area that turns the angled corner there with a coping cap feature at the top. Then after that is a grouping of residential units. We're trying to break down the mass of this fairly large building with undulations in the facade, material transitions, the smooth fascias of the balcony panel, the metal railings, and then the lap siding treatments at the upper floors. And then the floating roofs are a consistent design feature that happen on multiple facades of the project. As we move farther to the right, down Myra-Cohen, this is the parking garage for the project. So you can see the road is sloping up to where it appears 4 stories in line with the building. And then the road comes up and it's basically a 3-story garage facing the adjacent commercial sites. You go to the next slide, Ron, please. This is a closer view of the corner of the parking garage. It was important to us to make the garage a coherent treatment to the facade of the apartment. So to do that, we've added brick on continuous low walls around the garage. That'll screen all the cars and headlights from inside the garage, and also provide a consistent detailing of a 2-tone brick design, the light colored brick and the dark colored brick. We've got the stair towers and another tower at the corner to terminate the garage. And then we'd added a floating canopy element at the roof of the garage to relate to some of the design features back on the apartment building. You can go to the next slide, please. This is the view of the project from the busway or from the multi-use trail that parallels the busway. So we've provided a pretty generous setback from the trail with turf, the grasscrete emergency lane that Ron mentioned earlier, perimeter plantings, and then we're providing a continuous base of one-story brick along this facade. All the ground floor units will have patios that face the trail and the busway. And then the upper floors, again, we're using the undulations of the slots to break down the mass of the building, but can continue a nice rhythm across this facade, and breaking that up with the balcony slots, the smooth fascias of the balconies, the metal balcony railings, the top level canopies over the balconies, and then the flying roof features at the top. So I think we've come up with a consistent theme across the four sides of the project, but tried to break it down to a more human scale, more pedestrian scale, and emphasize certain entries and main portions of the building, and also make the garage coherent and not just an added on piece to the project. So thank you all for your time, and I appreciate and wanting to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Now, I think we're running late on time, so I'm just going to ask Mark Bertucci to give a quick recap of the traffic impact statement that we submitted along with this project.
You don't have to feel like you're rushed. So if there's more that you'd like to stay, the time will be extended for you. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, do you want to give a overview of the traffic impact statement?
Sure, we'll do, Ron. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Mark Bertucci. I'm a professional engineer and professional traffic operations engineer, also from Fuss & O'Neill in Manchester. As Ron said, we did prepare the traffic impact study, so I'll just briefly review our findings with you here tonight. This site, as has been mentioned, really has excellent access to the busway, so a true transit-oriented development. Not going to be all vehicular trips generated from this project. You're going to get a lot of walkers going over to the busway, bikers going to the multi-use trail that parallels the busway. But for those that do drive, the site also has excellent access to the state highway system. So a traffic signal at the intersection of Myra Cohen Way and Fenn Road. And then turning either left or right from that point, you hit the Route 9 expressway access ramps, either to the north or to the south. So very good access. As part of our study, we did review each of the signalized intersections within the study area along Fenn Road, and also both of the Route 9 interchange intersections. We did conduct new traffic counts back in May and June of this year. But given some of the volumes are still a little bit off from COVID, we did review historical 2019 counts that were conducted for the Cedar Point study down the road. So we were able to compare the two and adjust them as necessary to account for the fluctuations in traffic that we've been seeing the past year or so. We then took those volumes, we grew them to the 2023 design year with a growth factor, and we included traffic from a bunch of other developments in the area that have recently been approved, but are not yet open, such as the hotel, the CCSU parking garage, the car wash, and the Noodles Company on Fenn Road, and the Cedar Point development that I mentioned. So we took that traffic, and then we added traffic that we project this site will generate. And the traffic that we project this site will generate, we estimated from the ITE manual trip generation manual. This is an industry accepted resource for determining traffic generation for various land uses. And, using that manual and a 20% transit-oriented development credit, which was provided to us by the DOT, which I think is actually maybe even a bit conservative. Using that, this development will generate about 69 trips in the morning peak hour and 85 trips in the afternoon peak hour. So really a very minimal amount of traffic when you consider the volume that's out there on these roads today. As anyone through there knows that Cedar Street and 175 is probably arguably one of the busiest corridors in town outside of the Berlin Turnpike. So we went ahead, we conducted a capacity analysis at each of our study intersections. We added the site traffic to our background volumes and compared the before versus after. And what we found is there was virtually no changes in level of service at the majority of these intersections. Where there were changes in level of service, they were associated with a very minimal increase in vehicular delay, and those level of services in those cases were typically near the threshold of dropping from one level to another. So not a significant impact. And I will mention as well, the traffic signals in this study area are slated, all slated for replacement as part of a state project that is in design right now by the DOT. They're replacing all the coordinated signal equipment in the area. So that should improve the safety and efficiency of traffic operations, as we move forward when this project is ultimately built. Lastly, I wanted to mention we reviewed safety. We looked at sight lines from the two site driveways that Ron described. The sight lines are good, looking into the busway parking lot and then out towards Myra Cohen Way. We also pulled crash data from the Yukon Crash Repository for Cedar Street and Fenn Road and El Grasso Road. We didn't see any abnormal crash patterns with the exception of the East Cedar and Fenn Street intersection at the Route 9 northbound ramp. That intersection carries a very high volume of traffic, as you know, and there were a significant number of crashes there, some rear end collisions, and also some turning collisions. Again, that when that signal is replaced, that should help that situation. But longer term, the DOT and CROG have done a lot of studies of this area. As you know, they're looking at realignments of off ramps and much larger types of improvements that are certainly out of the scope of this project. But in the interim, we did recommend a couple of things in our study at this intersection on the Route 9 off ramp. Recommended a right turn on red from the right lane only coming off of the ramp. We did notice there's a double right turn there, and a lot of people were violating that rule and making double right. So that was causing sightline issues for vehicles on the inside right lane. We recommended a signal ahead sign on the off ramp. The queue on that ramp frequently backs onto Route 9. So we recommended that signal ahead signage. Again, these are just interim type recommendations here before a larger improvement is made to this area. And then our final recommendation was to optimize some of the traffic signal timings in the study area, which can just help the intersections operate a little bit better. But as I said, with the state replacing those signals, that should be those should all operate better in the near term. So the conclusion of our traffic study again was that the project will not have a significant impact to vehicular traffic operations. The increase in traffic at the study intersections from this project is minimus, and there's not a noticeable change in traffic operations at any of the intersections to the driver as a result of this project. So with that, I'll turn it back, I guess, to Ron, and I think we'll wrap things up. And I can answer any questions when you're ready. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. Chair, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. If I could ask the commissioners to see if they have any traffic questions before you go on. Is there any commissioners out there that have any questions concerning the traffic report? Okay, Ron, you can continue. Thank you.
Commissioner Gill has his hand raised.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Gill. Go right ahead.
Yes, as far as pedestrian traffic, is there any thoughts of crossing Myra Cohen Way somehow for the pedestrians?
I guess I could defer to Ron on the site plan here. I think, what's been proposed there is a direct sidewalk connection over to the multi-use trail. And I believe that continues north right to the busway stop. Is that correct, Ron?
Yeah, it connects to the east and then to the north to the fast track station. I think what the commissioner might be getting at is how about if they need to access the shops to the north, the supermarket to the north. We don't have a crosswalk shown on Myra Cohen. In order for them to cross, they would probably have to go all the way down to the fast track station and cross safely through that crosswalk that network of crosswalks that they have. Unfortunately, the hotel project was approved without having a sidewalk installed along Myra Cohen. It would have been a good opportunity at that point to make a connection to the west, especially with the Starbucks in the corner there. But there is no sidewalk to the west on the south side of Myra Cohen, only on the north side.
Commissioner Haggerty has his hand raised.
Commissioner Haggerty, go right ahead.
Just a comment. I live not too far from here or there, and I go to that Starbucks pretty often, and I can tell you that not every time, but probably a good 75% of the time, the queuing line from Starbucks is backing out into Myra Cohen Way. And now you add in a car wash, now you add in a noodles plaza, now you add in a hotel, and now you add in a apartment building. I'm just a little concerned about the load on Myra Cohen Way there. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Ron, if there's no other questions from commissioners, Ron, you can continue.
All right, thank you. I went into detail about the proposed development. Now I just want to touch on these incentives that we're asking for. So as we previously mentioned, the application requires approval of certain incentives that are allowed in the transit-oriented development zone, overlay zone, per section 3.19A.4 of the zoning regs. The first incentive is for the reduced mandatory on-site parking. The town of Newington's zoning regulations state within the PD zone, 2 parking spaces are required for each dwelling unit within the multifamily development. TOD projects historically have required less parking for the new developments due to the close proximity to public transportation and other amenities, creating live and work opportunities that reduce the overall need for personal vehicular transportation. We reviewed several guidelines and publications which recommend appropriate parking ratios for TODs. These parking ratios range between 1.1 and 1.3 spaces per dwelling unit. I think in that memo there, I had a typo. It says 1.1 to 1.6, but it's actually 1.1 to 1.3 in the results in the summary table below. The Institute of Transportation Engineers issued the Parking Generation Manual 5th edition. This manual takes into account empirical data of multifamily developments all over the country in order to quantify the peak parking demand for multifamily developments. For multifamily developments such as this one, they recommend providing a 1.12 parking ratio. The state of Connecticut has also recently adopted new legislation through substitute House Bill number 6107, Public Act number 21-29. The bill states that zoning regulations adopted pursuant to subsection A of the section shall not require more than one parking space for each studio or one bedroom dwelling unit, or more than two parking spaces for each dwelling unit with two or more bedrooms. Based on the proposed mix count, we would be required to provide a 1.3 parking ratio to comply with these regulations. The Capital Regional Council of Governments has also issued a model regulations for mixed-use transit-oriented development districts. These guidelines suggest 60% are providing 60% of the parking requirement for the underlying zone in the TOD overlay. This would result in a 1.2 parking ratio. The proposed development will provide 316 parking spaces for 238 units, resulting in a parking ratio of 1.32. Based on the data from each of these sources, we believe that the parking ratio of 1.32 is appropriate to support the proposed multifamily use. The second incentive that we'd like to discuss is the reduced front and side yards. Per section 3.1A, 0.4B of the zoning regulations, projects located within the TO overlay zone shall meet the yard requirements set forth in section 4.5 of the B-BT zone. This requires a 35-foot front yard setback as well as a 10-foot side yard setback. The redevelopment site has a front yard along Myra Cohen as well as Cedar Street, resulting in 2 front yards for this project. For this application, we are requesting a reduction in the front yard setback along Cedar Street as well as Myra Cohen Way. Reducing the front yard requirement along Myra Cohen to 10 feet would still provide approximately 30 feet of frontage from the edge of travelway to the proposed building. The Cedar Street right-of-way is extremely wide adjacent to the proposed site. The distance from the edge of the road to the property line varies along Cedar Street, but the point at which the proposed building will be closest is approximately 55 feet from the edge of the road. We are requesting a setback of only 3 inches to allow for construction of a retaining wall that must be constructed to allow emergency egress out that side of the building. Although we are requesting relief from these front yard setbacks requirements, there remains more than adequate space between proposed structures and the edge of roadway to accommodate this proposed development and allow it to still fit within the context of the adjacent properties and roadway corridor. We're also requesting relief from the side yard setback at the northeast corner of the property. The town zoning regulations do not allow paving or drive aisles within 5 feet of the side yard. To accommodate the emergency fire lane along the east side of the proposed building, we are requesting that the side yard setback to be 6 inches to allow room for the driveway and bituminous curbing. In support of each of these activities, we must satisfy the requirements outlined in section 3.19A, 0.5B, 1B of the zoning regs. This includes what is the need for a benefit of the proposed activity. The plan of conservation and development identifies the area opportunity. It identifies this area as opportunity area C, which recommends promoting appropriate redevelopment that will work well with the CCSU campus as well as the Cedar Street Fast Track Station. Allowing the multi-use family redevelopment will provide additional opportunities for student housing, early career professionals, as well as empty nesters who choose to live in close proximity to public transportation. In addition, the request to reduce the amount of required parking for the property is adjacent to the public transit station makes good sense. The town and state objectives were to achieve economic development investment as a natural outcome for the investment in the Connecticut Fast Track Station. This project is also the final phase of the overall process initiated by the town of Newington to redevelop the property, which for many years became a contaminated brownfield site. Restoring the property to a productive use has the key objective to not only to the town, but to the state, as evidenced by the DECD's brownfield grant to remediate the property. Redevelopment of the site will enhance the entire TOD district and serve as a catalyst for future development in the area. And the second one here is there architectural or functional compatibility with the adjacent or nearby buildings and activities. The proposed structure is 4 stories with the mezzanine. The Cedar Street roadway elevation is substantially higher than the development, as I previously mentioned. And the first 2 floors of the proposed structure will not be visible from Cedar Street travelway. Building elevations along Myra Cohen Way are 4 stories in height and consistent with the recently approved height of the hotel on the adjacent property. And then finally, what public amenities are included in the proposed activity? Although there are no specific public amenities in the proposed multifamily redevelopment, the project development does offer a substantial improvement to the aesthetic and property as it faces Myra Cohen Way. The installation of landscaping, trees, and new building structures proposed will comprise an aesthetic benefit to all who pass by the site on their way to Connecticut Fast Track Station. With that, I will conclude our presentation, and our design team and Brian are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to turn it over to our town planner now to see if she has anything that she'd like to add.
So I will start with the staff comments. As of right this moment, we have reviewed this. This application is complete. The applicant has addressed all but a few remaining minor and technical comments by our engineering department. And there is an existing agreement that should the commission vote tonight to approve this project, those comments can be made a condition of the approval. They're addressable. On the project itself, commenting on the project itself, I will say that in my opinion, this project or a project like this is necessary in this location to actually complete what is designated as our TOD district. Residential component must be part of what is a TOD zone, and therefore this kind of project is what is missing in this area right now. The relative density of this development also meets what generally TOD areas are intended to be and meant to be. I believe that the project is designed, the building is designed to be attractive. It fits with everything around it. It will improve the site. And more than anything, on the merits of this being a redevelopment of an existing abandoned problematic site that we had for many, many years, I find that this is a significant actually accomplishment if this gets approved tonight. So those are my opinions that I would like to share with the commission.
Thank you very much, Renata. Appreciate that. I'll entertain any commissioners that might have some questions concerning staff or anything else on this project. Is there any questions from the commissioners before I go to the public? Any additional questions?
And Commissioner Sobieski has his hand raised.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Sobieski, go right ahead.
Yes, couple of questions. Number one, you said there's a buffer in front of the building that you're asking a relief from 35 feet down. I believe you said the building would be about 10 feet off the edge of the road. Isn't that where the state right-of-way is in the front of the building? Secondly, I'm a little concerned about the back of the building with this retaining wall that you want to install. You're pushing off of 175 westbound, 28 feet of snow over that guardrail and down the embankment. I don't see, or I didn't see any type of drainage thing that would handle this water once it starts melting or the additional snow. I would like to see a bigger area back there. If you have to do the footprint of the building, so be it. But I think that when you're looking for a problem there, we're going to be looking for a problem there with all the water once it starts melting with that snow. And, my concern is with the snow being thrown from the state highway over to the top of that and down. I've seen it when they've gone through with the the rooster tail is coming off at least 15, 20 feet off to the side. And then you're pushing, like I said, two 12-foot lanes is 24 and 2-foot shoulders, 28 feet of snow over there. So I think it's
Okay.
an awful lot of snow. And my concern at that point, that's my concern at this point here.
Okay.
And
Let me
also-
see if, let's get those questions answered first, Commissioner Sobieski. I'll have Renata or the applicant answer those questions for you. And I believe the rear of the building, he stated, was 55 feet off the roadway, but I could be misunderstanding it. So I'll ask the either the applicant or our town staff to answer those questions, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to the applicant in part because I had a really hard time hearing the comments too.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question to see if I heard it right too, because it was difficult. Your main concern is the snow coming off of Cedar Street in the direction of our development. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So yes, so the distance between the travelway and the building itself is about 55 feet. A good portion of that is vegetated. There's a landscape slope that goes down to the top of the tunnel that or bridge structure that the fast track bus line uses to go underneath Cedar Street. And then there is that DOT or state right of way access that still exists today. It's not used. It's crumbled pavement. It's deteriorated. But regardless, it is a state right of way that we need to maintain we need to stay out of. That being said, the area is sloped appropriately to convey any stormwater or melting snow to the east in the direction of the busway, the multi-use trail. And there are drainage structures between the multi-use trail and our property that will accept that stormwater runoff.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Commissioner Sobieski, did you have another question?
Yes, the front of the building, how far off the state property line or the right-of-way line will the building be? Not from the edge of the road now, from the right-of-way.
Along Myra Cohen, is that your question?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I think it was 30 feet off the.
We requested a 10-foot setback, so it's going to be 10 feet from the right-of-way line to the structure itself.
And then Ron, how many more feet is it to the curb? So it's 30 feet to the.
35 feet, 35
to the
feet to the
pavement?
curb.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Commissioner Sobieski, so the building's not in the state right away.
No, I didn't say it was. I was just curious to how close it is.
Yep.
That's what I was looking for. And
Okay.
I did miss one thing on the traffic thing. I was thinking about something else. When, as the aerial photograph showed, there's cars parked along Myra-Cohen Way on the north side. Will that inhibit or prohibit movement in there for the traffic if that's allowed to stay, considering that's a state road?
I don't think the applicant has any control of where people park on Myra-Cohen Way, which is a public road. And I believe the state is working with another property owner down there for some additional parking. Maybe Renata has some information concerning that.
Nothing definitive. I've heard some rumors, but I don't know anything that I would be comfortable disclosing tonight.
Okay, but the staff didn't feel that the parked cars on Myra-Cohen Way would interfere with this project at all, correct?
Well, they shouldn't. I mean, this is a state road. The state has the ability to regulate on-street parking on their own property, and the applicant must maintain the egress. So if there is a car that's parked in front and people cannot get in and out, they will get towed. That's what I would imagine that will happen, or ticketed.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Anything else, Commissioner Sobieski?
No, I'm just, like I said, I know it's a state road. It's more or less a state driveway. I think they have a number assigned to it, but I was just concerned with the roadway width, considering parking on one side on the north side. And I just wanted to make sure that was all taken into consideration with the traffic volume. That's all. Thank you.
We can ask the traffic analysis.
Yeah, I was just looking at the, Mark Vertucci again from Fuss and O'Neill. I was just looking at the aerial on Google Maps, and I do see those parked cars there. There's about 18 feet of total distance in the westbound direction on Myra Cohen Way. So 12-foot travel lane and a 6-foot shoulder. So those cars are parking in the 6-foot shoulder. They're extending a bit into the travel lane, but it does look like there's enough passageway for through cars to get through there. They're not really blocking the travel lane much, but they are illegally parked. So that is something the state or local enforcement would need to enforce.
Okay.
All set for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think Mr. Fox has his hand up next.
Commissioner Fox, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, before I ask these couple of questions, I just want to state that I agree with the planner that this development, this project really complements the hotel and mixed use and all the other things around the area. And I think that, like way back in the early part of the century when the first applications for this area were put in, that was the idea. And I think that's come along pretty good. But I do have some questions to the chairman. I noticed you've got a nice big parking lot, a couple hundred spaces, and the building wraps around. I'm wondering about handicap parking. I didn't see any indication that you were providing any handicap parking.
Want me to go ahead and answer that?
Please, yes.
Yeah, I'll just take them one at a time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so each level of the parking garage will have accessible parking spaces provided. And then there's also 2 accessible parking spaces provided in the front by the main entrance. So the number of parking spaces we are providing in the project, this does provide adequate number of accessible parking spaces to meet the code.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox, another question?
Thank you, sir. Then I'm also being an former volunteer firefighter. The footprint, it looks very tight, and I'm probably kind of barking up the wrong tree because you probably already have. But I'm wondering if you dealt with, or if the fire marshal and the police chief have reviewed it and have approved it as far as getting our trucks in and around the development.
Yeah, so that was pretty much step number 1 in our process here. About 6 months ago, we came up with the sketch, and before we even dove into the design a little bit, we met with the fire marshal, went back and forth a few times. We made some revisions here and there to the emergency access width and alignment. And we came to a conclusion that this alignment would satisfy his needs, their needs in the fire department. This will require an application to the state fire marshal to request a waiver to their requirements. But we do have the fire marshal, town of Newington's fire marshal, sign off on this to support this alignment and this development.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Has the fire marshal put this in writing? I mean, forgive me if I'm being a little too picky here, but we've had some.
I'll have this. Let me have Renata briefly go over that topic with the commission. Renata, if you could address that, please.
Sure, absolutely. So the previous fire marshal has verbally approved this. The new fire marshal has reviewed it. There was a discussion with regards to this need to go for the applicant to apply for the relief through the state fire marshal's office. And that is the designated pathway right now. So what is going to happen is if this application is approved tonight, the applicant will submit an application to be submitted to the state office. That application, however, is submitted through our office here, and there was plenty of conversations between all of the parties, including our current fire marshal, as well as the fire chief on this project. We have had, I understand, some communication with the state fire marshal's office, which has essentially instructed us that as long as the municipal authorities agree that this is a workable plan, they would sign off on that. All that being said, however, this is a process that takes place with the building application, building permit application. So in order for this to even start, the commission is first step, and then the fire marshal and the building official reviews this under their codes as a next step. So the most likely scenario that we have been communicated with everybody about, and that we are fairly certain will ensure, is that the applicant will submit an application to the state fire marshal office. We will agree with it because our fire chief and fire marshal have looked at it and agreed that it's a workable solution and it's going to get approved. However, should by some random chance something happen and this variance or this modification not be granted by the state fire marshal, we wouldn't be able to issue a building permit, so the project stops. So that's sort of a safety valve, which is probably not necessary, but it's in place.
Thank you very much, Renata. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Fox? And if, do you have any additional questions?
Yes, no, good enough. Thank you, Renata. It's a very good explanation. I don't think I have any more comments. I do have questions, but I do have some general comments. I don't know if you want me to maybe wait for the commission's remarks. It really would not be answerable by the applicants. It's, just something I have in my mind.
It's your choice, Commissioner Fox. Your choice. We are going to.
All right, let me do that now. Get it out of the way. As far as the developments of the TOD, I am always been very much in favor of the incentives that the planner, and staff, and us, have given the developers in order to get some really viable development in there. But considering this, where, as Commissioner Sobieski said, we have the retaining wall right very close to the right of way and a couple other things, and in the hotel, there are a number of things that I considered a little less than satisfactory, but it is what it is. And, it is what it is. The only question I have here, one more, which I just saw. One of the things that the POCD talks about is the amenities and the public use of the amenities. Now, the applicant's representative has stated that there really are no public amenities, but that the aesthetics of the area are improved. And to be honest with you, anything would be an improvement over looking at the current site. So, and I'm not being facetious, but you've got there are some amenities within the building. You've got the pool in the courtyard. Would they be opened up to the public for, if I don't know. Anyway, that's all I have. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, applicants.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fox. Is there any other questions from the commissioners?
I believe Mr. Claffey has his hand raised.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Claffey, go right.
One question and then one comment. The one question is in regards to the fire. I know I totally am aware in my past life of it still has to go through the building department. Just a question on the type of sprinkler system. It's going to be a 13 building or a 13R?
It'll be a 13, sir.
13. Okay. So I don't think that's an issue with that'll ever come up. It's fully sprinkled then. Secondly, I do want to, give my 2 cents. It'll be pretty quick. I think this meets the TOD regulations that we spent years putting together. Most of the commissioners had some form of say in it. I think this property meets it, exceeds it. It is pretty much the focal point of the whole TOD for that section of town. And for the other, commissioners that are thinking, we can't kind of forget that this commission gave some incentives to other people in that TOD for properties in regards to some of the same exact needs that this applicant needs. So I think it's consistent with the TOD. I think it's consistent with what our previous action has been on this commission to previous applications for different parcels of land within that TOD. So I think we have to remember that we can't just kind of focus just on what tonight. We have to look at what we did over next door at the property, what happened at the car wash site, and also the noodles site, the retail units up there. So, I like what I saw, but I do want to hear from any other commissioners that have some valid concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Claffey. Any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioner Braverman.
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braverman.
Okay, given that National Welding used to be the previous site for that property, I'm just kind of curious about the environmental impact of that property and what are the results of some environmental studies on that property. And that's basically my question.
Thank you. If the applicant could review that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, quite honestly, I don't know the specifics of what was found. I do know that we are coordinating with EPA and Connecticut Deep and providing them with a very lengthy remedial action plan. What that plan is proposing to do is basically keeping most of the soil on site, capping it, and protecting it from any future excavations or any potential risk of getting near that soil. So what we are doing is any soils that are above the threshold of the guidelines are going to go underneath the parking garage area where we have a substantial amount of fill required to go, and that's where it's going to be encased and capped.
Thank you very much, Ron. Hopefully that answers your question, Commissioner Braverman. Is there anything else?
No, everything's fine. I just wanted to get that issue placed on the table.
Thank you, Commissioner Braverman. Is there any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioner Linares.
Yes, Commissioner Linares, go right ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just prior to seeing this presentation, with consideration to what the prior commission had talked about for TOD, what some of the current people and past people had put together for the POCD going forward, I think the whole commission and community involved and staff would have to be pretty happy with something like this coming to the table compared to what we've seen and what we've driven by for all those years. It meets and exceeds some of the recommendations and needs that we put forward. And it kind of, if you had to draw it up, this would be what you would draw up. Massaging the petition to get it to meet our needs and what we like, I think is obviously what staff is for and what they've done. Just my only question would be, and it's a very small question to Renata, would be the conditions that we would have to approve with conditions. Let's say if this was to go forward tonight, nothing major, all small stuff that can be massaged through to just kind of have it go nice and smooth, nothing major, obviously.
That is Through Chair, absolutely correct. We have some minor and technical comments that are outstanding by the engineering department. I also recommend that when the commission, and you will see that in the proposed motion, if the commission proceeds tonight to make this decision, to not create additional conditions that are related to this issue of receiving the modification from the state fire marshal office, because that's a third party, that's tying your approval to a third party approval. It's not advisable, and it's also not necessary because, again, the building permit does not get signed off until this issue is resolved.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Renata.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any other questions?
Commissioner Gill.
Commissioner Gill, go right ahead.
Yes, just as far as the TOD, I go along with the other commissioners. It seems as though it's a perfect fit. And the setbacks, I think we're talking about to a right of way, not to the actual, like, to Cedar Street. I mean, there's 50 feet of space over there. And the other on the Myra Cohen side, is still going to be a decent setback there. For those there, I feel we can bend it a little bit there. Another just quick question I had was, is there any EV charging stations for the parking garage structure? I know it's not a requirement. I'm just curious.
I'll go ahead and answer that. It's something that we will certainly consider. We haven't frankly gotten to the point where those kinds of details are determined, but we are doing that in other projects that we have around the country. So for sure, we'll consider it here.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gill. I'd like to go to the public. If there's no other questions, if there's no objection, I'd like to go to the public. So at this point, this is a public hearing, so I will see if there's anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak speaking in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in opposition?
I have one person with their hand raised.
Okay,
Kara Santaro.
certainly.
Hello, and thank you for letting me speak. This is Cara Santor for 93 Francis Avenue. I have some questions. I'm just wondering how this project got so far and there was never anything put out to the public or any kind of public opinion, before. It seems like this has been going on for an awful long time. They didn't just drop these plans overnight. That's one of my questions. Maybe you're going to take notes and answer them all at once.
Well, the staff has been working with them, and this is the standard procedure, and then they come in for the public hearing, and that's why we're having a public hearing right now on that.
And I think it would have been a nice idea if something like this was done in person. As you can see, there's probably not that many people even on this call. And it's a reminder, this is a town and not a city. And it just seems like, it's everybody that's in office now is just trying to grow this and grow this. I'm wondering how the schools are going to handle all these more students. I want to know how many of these are low income rents and not fair market value. I'd like to know how this is going to impact the police department. They have so much on their plate now, and I'd like to know how the police department even feels about this. And the person who said Fenn Road is not congested apparently doesn't live around here and doesn't drive it, because I drive that road every day. In regards to red lights and stop signs, people do not use them. I'm surprised there's not more terrible accidents than they are, because I think the people, that are at the lights that turn green have a lot more common sense nowadays, just to sit and wait, because it's pathetic. They stop at no stop signs and no red lights. So that's, yeah, I guess that's my question. And I know that if you have low-income people, I'm not saying any ethnicity, I'm just speaking it out. I was a loan officer for 33 years. I know all about all the programs. But there was also an owner of a motel in Vernon this summer that got killed over a dispute from someone living there about the pool. And I just would hate to see stuff like this going on there. I love pools. I wish I had an in-ground one myself, but I think you're asking for a lot of trouble, depending on, what type of, community you expect to have there. And that's it. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody else wishing to speak from the public?
I do not see anyone else with their hand raised right now.
Okay. I will give the applicant an opportunity to, if he wants to answer any of these public's questions.
I can speak out to a couple of the questions that were raised. Regarding the schools, the overwhelming number of units of this property will be studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms. I think, Justin, you might have to help me here, but I think there were only maybe 4 3-bedroom units that would be even attractive to a family that would have children. Those are 4 units down on the south end of the building that we bumped them up, if you will, just so we could have a little bit better visibility from Cedar Street. These days, this type of unit mix is more what's in demand. I believe that you attract a lot of young professionals, empty nesters, things like that with this type of product more so than families. And I also believe that families, if you're getting to the point where you're paying rent for a 3-bedroom unit that will hold your family, then most people are opting to buy a home instead. So our assumption is that the schools are not going to be overly taxed by this project. Regarding the affordable housing, our plan was to have it be market rate. That's typically what we do in all of our projects. Because this one has some state money that's attached to it, the state through, I believe it was DECD, asked us to include an affordable housing component. Now, affordable housing is different from, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going blank. Somebody help me here.
Low income.
Low income, thanks, Ron. Affordable housing is different from low income housing, and the affordability requirement is a much stricter, I guess, requirement. So when DECD came to us, we compromised, if you will, and we're going to have, I think it's 5% of the units, that's maybe 12 units or so, be for affordable housing, and that's for a period of 10 years. And that was something that the state agreed with us on. The issues about police and Finn Road, I don't have answers for those.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since we've heard from the public and we've had the questions answered.
Mr. Chairman, there is one
Dominic.
individual that just raised his hand.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
With
someone on the phone.
Yeah, with phone ending 070.
Okay. Very good.
Hi, sorry, it's Rose Lyons. I was listening and trying to hit the *9 and it just wasn't working for me. I appreciate you letting me speak. I just had a question. I've been kind of in and out of listening to this because I've had some interruptions, but the environmental studies for that property, did I hear them say that they're still working with the state on it? I thought that that had all been resolved before this property was put up for sale. If you could just touch on that a little bit as to what needs to be finished with the environmental cleanup of the site. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can answer that too, I guess.
Thank you, Brian.
So sure. So back when the site was cleaned up, it was brought to a level of cleanliness that it needed to be without knowing what was going to be on the property next. So if perhaps another industrial use was going to go there, there was not another need to take it to the next level. Now that we hope that there's going to be a residential community on top of it, we're basically picking up where that first remedial action plan, or RAP, left off and continuing that forward. And if I'm not mistaken, the RAP from 8 years ago said that if you do something of a residential nature, you basically do exactly what we're doing and put a cap over it. And so that's what we took our clues from, and our environmental engineers over at Fuss and O'Neill are doing everything to comply with that.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Claffey has his hand up.
Commissioner Claffey, go right ahead.
I just had a real quick question in regards to the market rate. And I know it's a long shot, but if Brian could, if he doesn't know kind of what to kind of ease people to understand the magnitude of this type of complex and the amount of rent, et cetera, et cetera. That would help me. I kind of think I know, but it leaves me market rate is 15, 17, 2,000, 2,300, but if you could just kind of, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but just for some of the listeners that throw the affordability side of it.
Right. I mean, if it's truly market rate, then you're charging what other comparable properties in the same market are charging. And, I don't want to say anything disparaging about any of the other properties, but there's really nothing like this in Newington. And probably the closest thing in terms of age of construction anyway, is the property over in, it's called Borden at Wetherington, I believe. Several miles, about 4 or 5 miles east and a little bit south of this particular property.
We're in Wethersfield.
Wethersfield, thank you, I'm sorry. So anyway, if you look at what they're charging, you give and take a little bit. I mean, they're in a great location. They're not a TOD project, but it is a good location. And that's generally what we're going to consider and when we open up. Now, granted, that's a long way from now. It's probably over a year before we get doors open. But that's truly what market rate means. And so when the time comes, we'll see what they're charging. If there's any other projects that are similar to this by that point in time, we'll consider those as well.
I understand. Thank you. I know that area well, and I think some people here in the town need to maybe venture out to Wethersfield, take a look at that, maybe up into Bloomfield where there's some other projects that have developed that are kind of comparable to this. So it's not a small feat that we're taking under right here. It's a large, prolonged, couple-year project.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Woods has his hand raised, Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to make a couple comments. Actually, I would thank, first of all, the applicant. I think you've done a really good job with what you've designed here. I think it definitely fits well into the property. I think it will obviously be a very good asset to the town once you have it completed. I like what you have. I am actually very happy to see that there is now a little bit of an affordable or workforce housing component to this. Even if it's only for 10 years, it's still, I think that's a great add to the project. I really do. I think it will help a few of the people that are right on that edge, that want to be in it and maybe just a little bit out of reach. And now you've helped them. So I'm really, really happy to see that. The only other comment that I would have is on your fire road, would be on the east side of the road that runs parallel with the busway. I would just ask you to go back and kind of look at that and see what the product that you're using. While it does a really good job when you're looking at it in the book, and you can grow great grass on top of it. That's not usually the case. So you might want to see some applications where it's actually in use. You're building, a Class A complex here. I think you're going to want it to look really, really good. I'm not sure the product that you have is going to give you that finished look that you're looking for. Really just a comment, that's all. Other than that, again, I think you've done a great job. And I think you've proved to this commission that the concessions that you're looking for are in order. And I look forward to seeing that earth starting to get moved and construction happen, and even more so having people move in, and then seeing a big smile on Mr. Shu's face.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. All right, if there's no additional questions or comments from the commissioners, I would entertain the commissioners to make a motion to close petition 37-21 and move it to old business for possible action tonight.
I make a motion that we close petition 35-21 and move it to old business for possible action tonight. Thank you.
It should be 37-21.
I'm sorry, 37-21. I looked at it and said 35. I'm sorry.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Claffey, and do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Commissioner Woods. Any questions or comments? All in favor to close the petition and move it to old business for possible action? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, our next petition is petition 35-2021. If I could have Commissioner Havens read that, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Petition 35-21, zoning text amendment, section 6.2.1, to allow a digitally controlled fuel product pricing to be displayed on freestanding signs in the B and T-TC zones in an editorial correction at section 5.2.7 and 6.2.1, applicant and contact Newington TPZ.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. I'll turn this over to our staff.
So by the way, this is an amendment in B and V-TC zone. Business town center zone essentially is the one that we're referring to. So I submitted this application essentially on an ask of a business owner here in town who owns an S&S gas station on the intersection of New Britain Avenue and Maple Hill Road. And he invited me to his site and we discussed the fact that in his estimation, this was one of those standard procedures or standard things that you buy when you buy signage with a gas station. And in our regulations, and this was something that Commission adopted in 2011, there was a specific exclusion of the language that treated the fuel pricing signs in business and business town center zone and essentially prohibited those to be lit, to have like inside lights in them. I believe, I'm assuming that in 2011, this regulation was made such because business and business town center zones are generally surrounded by residential neighbors and residential uses. And especially in town center zones, that is a little denser area. So the commission at the time, I'm assuming, perhaps was concerned about excessive lights, and that's why they adopted it. However, under our current regulations, we require a special permit, which requires public hearing and the commission vote for any signs, freestanding signs in all of our business zones, including these two. We also have a provision in our regulation that says if somebody gets their sign approved, but then there is a change to it, substantial change, that would trigger another review by the commission and also trigger a public hearing. I proposed the language that essentially deleted this prohibition. And Eric, do you have that language available to display? If not, I can read it. So while Eric's working on it, it's under section 6.2.1, which treats signs, and it's subsection E, and I'm proposing that we delete subsection 2 that reads, fuel product price sign shall be digitally controlled and a component of the business's freestanding sign, provided that each product per gallon price size does not exceed 1 foot high by 3 foot wide and does not move, flash, run, scroll, rotate, or change color or brightness. Digitally controlled product price signs shall not be permitted in the business town center district and the business district zone. And as I said, I'm proposing that we just strike this language out, because if you have a gas station in any kind of zone, it is within our regulation to review the sign for it under the special permit. If they get the sign and it gets approved and it doesn't show these lit fuel pricing features, and then in the future they want to add lit fuel pricing features, they would be required to go to the commission again, because it's substantial change to what was previously approved. And the process would again require public hearing. So I think we have currently sufficient controls in our regulations without explicitly prohibiting this and effectively making it so that they really cannot have. This is quite inflexible the way we have it right now.
Thank you very much, Renata. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say, and in my memo, I outlined why I thought that this was consistent with our plan of conservation and development. It essentially streamlines the process, and it eliminates some inflexibility, some rigidity that we have in the regulations.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata. It was a very good explanation. I understand it. And I'll go to the commissioners to see if they have any questions for you. Any commissioner have any questions?
I see no commissioners with their hands raised at the moment.
Okay, it's a public hearing, so we'll go to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? If you're on the phone, please raise your hand. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application?
No one from the public has raised their hand.
Okay, no one wishing to speak in opposition. We'll give it another minute.
Eric, I'm sorry, Eric, but I am seeing on my screen that Stephen somebody has raised his hand. That might be on the phone though. Can you see that or no?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Stephen.
Hi, Steve Chavone, owner of 430 New Britain Avenue. I appreciate you got your consideration and your long work tonight. You guys have had it, your hands full. We're looking to keep up with the big guys. It's kind of getting harder and harder to do. You know, I mean, we got a new place going in down the street. Just trying to make it look like we belong. The signs are already lit. It's not the individual letters that are lit, it's just lit behind it. I believe all price signs are lit. We've been family owned and operated since '86. Property owners since the end of '99, 2000. We like being there. We appreciate what you guys do for us. And again, just thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Appreciate the comments. Anybody else wishing to speak from the public? All right, hearing nobody else from the public, and if there's no additional questions from the commissioners, I would ask the commissioners to consider putting together a motion to close petition 35-21 and move it to old business for action, possible action tonight.
Make a motion to close petition 3521 and move it to old business for action this evening.
Thank you. That's a motion from Commissioner Mars.
Second.
And I have a second from Commissioner Fox. Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously to close petition 35-21 and move it to old business for possible action. Next thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of 8/25/2021. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fox.
Second by Sobieski.
Seconded by Commissioner Sobieski. Any corrections in the minutes? Any corrections? All in favor of approving the minutes of 08/25/2021? Aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed. Motion carries unanimously to approve the minutes of TPZ minutes of 08/25/21. Next thing is some petitions on old business. The first one is petition 40-21, site plan approval at 129 Willard Avenue. Applicant and owner Gibbs Oil Company. Contact Kenneth R. Slater Jr. Is the applicant available? And maybe I'll turn this first over. I'm sure the applicant is here. Why don't I have the town planner brief on a couple of the things that we were waiting to get information on.
So it is my understanding that the commission at the last meeting tabled this because we had some outstanding engineering comments that were not responded to or agreed upon between our engineering department and the applicant. Some of that was a result of perhaps miscommunication. There were a number of recommendations that were made by our engineering department, but they were not necessarily requirements, and the commission was not quite sure, as I understand, as to what was actually required of them and what was something that, in our opinion, was like a smart thing to do. So post that, the applicant has submitted plans and had communication with our engineering department. And as it is right now, all of the comments are addressed. I believe there may have been a couple of planning comments that were outstanding at the last meeting as well. That has been resolved. There is no more zoning comments that we need to worry about. And there are a few comments still remaining by the engineering, but they're minor technical, and there is an agreed upon approach as to how this would be addressed on revised plans. So as it is right now, use is not really a subject to discussion. As we mentioned earlier, the special permit has been issued. There was public hearing associated with it. We're just merely looking at the site plan, site design. And as far as staff is concerned, that either meets our regulations or requirements, or some minor revisions on the site plan will bring it to that point. So if you proceed by approving this, we will have some conditions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the commissioners concerning any issues on petition 40-21? Commissioner Sobieski, do you have a question?
Thank you. I just was wondering if Commissioner Woods' comment from last meeting was addressed or looked at or whatever. That's all I was wondering. Thank you.
I don't understand, Commissioner Sobieski. Could you state that again?
I was just wondering if the concerns that Commissioner Wood had about where the offloading with the fuel had been addressed. I know that if I remember correctly, they were looking at maybe trying to move the tanks to the other side of the building. Just wondering where that was. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from commissioners? Any other questions from commissioners? Well, I'll ask the applicant if he has anything he'd like to add.
Just a bit, Ken Slater for the record, Halloran and Sage. Been very happy working with staff and the commission, obviously through the three-part process here. Happy to say that I think we are at the 1 yard line. The only real new issue that engineering and our engineering is working through is, I won't get into too much detail, but just to give you an idea of how the finer strokes that we're at right now is under existing conditions at the site. There's a condition that's called surcharging that you might have dealt with before, but during a 25-year storm event, the downstream pipe, not the pipe that's on our property, it can't handle enough water to have the water free flow. What happens is the water will back up in the pipe a bit. It doesn't flood, it doesn't exceed the height of the stormwater structures, but in the perfect, in the stormwater manual, if you were doing a brand new development, you design your system so that there would be free flow of water. This is obviously an existing developed property, and existing conditions don't allow for free flow of water. There's some surcharge. So based on that, the engineering department had some recommendations that some measures be taken. At first, frankly, we thought that they wanted the property to be able to completely free flow the stormwater. That's simply not possible on the site. That would require giant detention of water that's coming from off site. But based on the discussions that were had with the town's engineer and our engineer, the requirements will include changing some pipe sizes so that the pipes on our property are a little bit bigger so that they'll improve the existing conditions. So have every confidence that we'll be able to satisfy that. It hasn't been completely buttoned down. They're very close to it. Our engineer is finishing that. So the condition that we satisfy, a conditional approval to satisfy the town engineer's concern on that is certainly satisfactory from our standpoint. And we think we resolved all the issues, including to the satisfaction of the town engineer, that there was good reason why we can't run the fuel trucks in on the other side, that it is appropriate for us to be doing the filling the way that we do and exiting the site that we do. So between the last meeting and now, that concern has been addressed to the engineer's satisfaction, as I understand it. So it has been a process that we really appreciate the commission and staff working with us, and I'm very happy to think that we are in a position to be able to be approved, and we hope you will.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is there any other commissioners that have any questions for either the applicant or staff? Hearing none, it sounds like our staff has worked with the applicant tremendously on this to get this where it is. I'll entertain a motion. And if I could have Commissioner Lenars, if you could read the petition 40-21 motion, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Petition 40-21 site plan approval at 129 Willard Ave, applicant owner Gibbs Oil Company, contact Kenneth R. Slater Jr. Esquire. Move to approve the site plan application for 129 Willard Avenue with modifications. 1, as outlined in a town engineer's letter dated September 2nd, 2021. And 2, as outlined in an email from the assistant town planner to Ken Slater and Richard Tefusco dated August 27th, 2021, which discussed accessible parking. Reasons for the approval. Proposal meets site plan criteria in section 5.3 of the Newington zoning regulations.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lenars. Motion made by Commissioner Lenars. Do I have a second?
Second by Sobieski.
Seconded by Sobieski. Any questions or comments? I think this is turned out to be an excellent proposal to improve the area there. They've taken extra precaution to improve the buffering for the neighbors. And I think this is a nice project for the town. I'll ask Noreen to call for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Claffey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you all and staff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slater.
Have a good night.
Good night. The next petition we have is petition 37-21, special permit, section 3.19A, and associated site plan to construct a residential apartment development with a parking garage in a TOD PD zone at 690 Cedar Street. Applicant and contact Anthony Properties, Brian Shu, owner, town of Newington. He covered a lot of things on the site plan earlier, but I'll just go to the applicant, see if he has anything else he'd like to talk to us about on the site plan.
I don't have anything here about, Brian, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I think we're good.
No, you guys did an excellent job earlier. I'll ask the commissioners if there's any final questions for either the staff or the applicants. Any commissioners have any additional questions on the site plan for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for petition 37-21. I think this, our town staff has worked on this for a long time, along with Brian and Anthony Properties. I think they've done an excellent job. This is a real big improvement for our TOD area. It's a beautiful building. I think it's going to be an asset for the town of Newington for years to come. And I'm sure they're going to be excellent property owners in the town of Newington.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I have Commissioner Vice Chairman Claffey. If you could read petition 37-21, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Petition that I move to approve petition 37-21 special permit, section 3.19A, and associated site plan to construct a residential apartment development with a parking garage in a TOD/PD zone at 690 Cedar Street. Applicant and contact Anthony Properties, Brian Shu, owner, town of Newington. I move to approve the special permit and associated site plan for 690 Cedar Street with modifications. 1, as outlined in a town engineer's letter dated September 7, 2021. Reason for approval: the proposal is consistent with the Newington Plan of Conservation and Development and meets the special permit and site plan criteria in sections 5.2 and 5.3 of the Newington zoning regulations.
Okay, we have a motion made by Vice Chairman Claffey. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Havens.
We have a second by Commissioner Havens. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Like I said, I think this is going to be an excellent asset for the town of Newington. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, I would appreciate it.
Commissioner Claffey,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
And yes,
unanimous.
we have a unanimous vote for this. And I congratulate the Anthony Properties and Brian. Welcome to the town of Newington.
Thank you very much. We appreciate everybody's support.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is petition 35-21 zoning text amendment, section 6.21 to allow digital controlled fuel product pricing to be displayed on freestanding signs in a B and a BTC zones, and an editorial correction at section 5.27 and 6.21. Applicant and contact Newington Town Planning and Zoning. I'll ask the commissioners before we go into the motion if there's anything that they need cleared up from our town planner on this. It's fairly simple. Is there any questions from the commissioners concerning petition 3521? Hearing none, if there's no objection, I would ask Commissioner Woods if you could read petition 35-21. I'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Petition 35-21 zoning text amendment, section 6.2.1 to allow digitally controlled fuel product pricing to be displayed on freestanding signs in the B and B-TC zones, and an editorial correction at section 5.2.7 and 6.2.1, an applicant and contact Newington TPZ. Move to approve the zoning regulation amendment, the effective date of September 22nd, 2021. Reason for the approval: this proposal is consistent with the POCD in that it streamlines the approval process while maintaining a needed regulatory authority to review these applications for potential impact to the residential neighborhood on a site-by-site basis.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Woods for petition 35-21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fox. Any comments or questions? I think this is fairly simple. Would be an improvement for some of our businesses in that area. I would ask Noreen if you could do a roll call vote. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Commissioner Claffey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you very much, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Yep, I congratulate the applicant. I hope that works for you. Next thing on our agenda is we don't have anything scheduled for petitions, but we'll go to the town planner's report. We'll see if Renata has anything that she'd like to report to us.
So yes, at the next meeting, there is a couple of hearings that you will hold. Most of them you already scheduled at some point in past. So there is a petition 3921, which is a special permit application to allow a creation of an interior lot this is essentially a situation where we have two non-conforming lots. One will become conforming by realignment of the lot lines so that one is perhaps interior lot if commission approves it, and the other one is conforming. The second hearing, hearing will be on the regulation amendment for the cannabis sales and production in business zone for sales, BBT zone for sale, and cultivation in industrial zone.
Okay. Anything else?
And okay, so we're on the top planner report. I'm sorry. So I was just looking at my future agenda, which again is posted online. The coming up in October, we will also review as a commission several applications for the residential development on Culver Street and Deming Road. This is a property just above where the Lowe's home whatever, tools and wood store is. And that is it as far as business coming forward.
Okay, very good. Under communications, we all received the CROGS letters. I don't know if any commissioners have any questions concerning that. And Renata, was there any other communications at all?
No, the only thing that I could actually report on is that we are copied on a letter that was submitted to the Connecticut Siting Council, which is a regulatory authority for this kind of thing. It is regarding a concrete pad relocation at a site on 605 Willard Avenue where there is a current AT&T cell tower.
Okay. Very good. Any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, without any objections, we'll go to public participation.
Excuse me, Chairman Payne.
Yes, Commissioner Sobieski.
I have one question. Maybe I misunderstood Renata, but I thought that we had already voted on the Deming area in back of Lowe's. Didn't we vote that already, or is there something else that's going in there?
There's something else going in.
Okay, it wasn't clear to me.
Right? Correct, Renata?
This is, I'm not sure what Commissioner Sobieski is referring to on Deming Road. This property is directly on intersection of Culver and Deming Road.
Okay, thank you, Renata.
And it requires there will be several applications, including the zone change and number of other special permit and site plan and all that stuff. Wetlands.
It's the remainder of the Haltner property.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. That clears it up.
Any other questions from commissioners? Without any objection, we'll go to public participation right now. Public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes within the Zoom application. Raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. Use *6 when recognized to speak by telephone. State your name and address for the record, please. Is there anybody that would like to be recognized from the public?
Yes, I believe Rose Lyons would like to speak.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Alton Drive. Just for clarification, as far as the upcoming discussions on Culver Road and Deming, you're not talking about the Peckham property. You're talking about the other farm area, the Haltner. Is that another farm area on the corner there? Just so I know to be listening for the next meeting to see what's going on. Thank you.
Yes, Rose, thank you. That is a different farm. It's not the Peckham, it's the Haltner farm, a little on the other end of Deming. Is there?
Mr. Chair, if I can chime in just for a second.
Certainly.
The question or the comment was made earlier that there was no sufficient notice regarding 690 Cedar development. We have, as soon as that application came in, we had posted documents, including the building renderings and site plans and all kinds of stuff on the town website. I have done the same for this development on Deming and Covell. So if there's any interest in public, the documents are already displayed on the website for review and comments.
And usually we have a public sign. We have a sign for public hearing at the properties, always posted. And we also, if I'm not mistaken, we put something in the newspapers too. Is that correct?
That is. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Rose has raised her hand again.
I'll let Rose speak again if Rose wants to speak again.
If I hit the *9, I apologize. I have nothing further to say. Thank you, though.
No problem, Rose. Thank you. Have a good night. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
No one appears to have their hand raised.
Thank you very much, Eric. Remarks from commissioners? Do any commissioners have any remarks?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, I got a call and I talked to you about this, that several people are, as this one person, doesn't have computer access. And I asked him to call the town planner to see if there's some way that this gentleman could see what's going on with the town. I don't know if he gets newspapers or not. I didn't delve into it that deeply. But I did tell him, to call the town planner if he had any other questions. A lot of seniors don't have computers. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's good. If anybody does have any questions, I'm sure Renata, the town planner, will answer any questions that they have. Is there any other remarks by commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, first of all, I want to welcome Renata back. Hope she had a nice vacation. And I'm sure she's maybe wishing she could start another one by now, but that's okay. At any rate, on the same line as Commissioner Sobieski was just talking about, as usual, a number of people, I guess, I don't know what the number was, not too many, have been misinformed or have not attended meetings and so are complaining, not in my backyard, and no way are we going to stand for this. So I expected that, I think Dominic, that we might have had a long meeting tonight. But once again, it seems as if the keyboard soldiers are just that. And I can only think that maybe one, they just don't want to say anything, or two, they're very happy with what we're doing. I hope to think it's the latter, but I'm not sure. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Any other remarks from commissioners?
One remark I have is I think tonight was the most amount of people that have been on any of our Zooms. If you looked at the participants on the left side, and then also the total participants on the right side, I think it was close to upwards of 40.
We had over 40.
Yeah, so it's not the most ideal way to do things, but probably for the next 6 months, it's going to be how we're doing it. So I think we're doing a good job. Few technical difficulties, but this is the new way for quite a while now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Claffey. I appreciate the comments. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
Yep, thank you. Just on the advance notice for 690 Cedar Street, I think the town planner has done an excellent job of notifying the public as soon as she's aware of these things. And I also think that you don't even have to be following this too closely. This was tied up at the council level for probably close to a year when they were negotiating with this particular developer. So there was ample notice of what was going on and what was planning for the future on this piece of property. But again, I think Renata has done a really good job since coming to town and making sure that she gets notices out as soon as she gets them. And I applaud her for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Woods. I agree with you. Any other commissioners have any remarks? I want to thank all the.
I have something, Mr. I'm sorry.
Certainly, Commissioner Lenars, go right ahead.
Just to follow up on some of the remarks earlier, I think someone spoke during public participation, or I'm not sure what it was for, but I think it was Ms. Santoro spoke earlier. Just to kind of rebut what she said, I so appreciate all of the public that comes on, listens, participates, weighs in, for, against. If anybody that knows me knows, sometimes I don't really care what side of the fence you're on, as long as it's your own opinion. I can respect it and honor it and move forward. But when sometimes people tell me, and I do get this comment sometimes just being in town, sometimes they say, why are you on a Zoom meeting? You should do it in person. Like, that's ridiculous. Well, that's the way we're doing business right now, and we can't stop these people from doing business. I mean, the applications that were in here tonight, where one of them was as small as a sign and the other one was 200 and something apartments. So you can't stop the way we do business just because we have to go by Zoom as opposed to being in person. I hope that doesn't discourage anybody from following along or participating in the future. It's just the way we have to do things. But once again, I can't applaud Ms. Santoro included, the rest of the public for participating, following along, whether they agree, don't agree, hate the way we're doing things. As long as they're participating, I think it's pretty cool. And it's just the way we have to do things right now. But we'll get back to normal, let's say, at some point. So thanks for everybody for participating in our town. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lenars. Great points. Appreciate it. Any other further comments from any other commissioners? Hearing none, I would just say that I would echo the comments made by the other commissioners, and I would say that Renata and the entire staff has done an amazing job. I mean, just this one application on National Welding, they've been working for over a year on, and I think they've done such a great job that we are able to review these in a very speedy fashion. And so I commend them on that. And I think we're doing the best we can with the conditions that we have. I tried to have something in person just recently. We were going to have our meetings in person, but with COVID getting worse, we just couldn't do it. So unfortunately, we'll have to wait a little while longer, and then we'll have our public meetings. I want to thank all the commissioners, and I want to thank NCTV, James, and Eric for everything. If there's no objection, motion to adjourn, please.
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Fox. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Have a nice night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.